5.
Okay, what we give them?
Check everything.
I'd say we give them 7 minutes.
7 minutes,
Yes,
you think? Yeah.
so in the
Okay.
road,
I thought 3 minutes.
I think
Oh,
everyone's.
God.
Ruthless, no mercy.
You've
Well,
got
yeah,
to at
just
least get
because-
them through that Audible ad now.
Oh
Oh, good point.
gosh.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. 30-second Audible ad. Ugh.
You think they'd come up with a new Audible ad? Although I do kind of like the new Coke ad as opposed to that terrible one that had the orc in it. I don't know. That was awful. That was like the most
What are you
cringiest.
talking about? That
Oh.
really spoke to me as a gamer.
Oh, it's so cringy.
Like-
They had that ad on repeat at EGX in October, and it was really annoying, actually.
So, I remember being in the cinema, and that came on in the cinema. So we were looking at ads before the movie, and I was moved to tears.
Oh gosh.
I thought it was such an incredible story.
Oh no.
I don't know the orc's name. I don't think he has one, but by God, he loves Coke.
He does look enough to lay down his axe.
Like, it's so powerful. It's.
Oh.
I mean, just thinking about it, you know.
Oh gosh, yes, you're choking up now.
Hey, stop! Hey, stop!
Ah. Chatty Chad, come join us. I command it. I don't know. I say, Pete. I mean, what do you think?
What do I think of what? Sorry,
5, 6, 7, 8 minutes.
I'd say until 15:15, so
Yeah.
Quarter past.
7
Well,
minutes.
okay.
7 minutes.
Right, that is what I was counting. Okay, I'm bad at time.
Oh man.
Okay.
I'm bad at numbers.
Audible ad.
Come on, chat. Come on, chat. Come on, chat. Pete, do you need me to do any post-didiosties?
No, I've got all the posts ready to go. I'll send them out in a minute. I'm just
Sweet.
checking our levels and all.
I'll sit here and sweat to death.
Excellent.
You know, it's
Nice, we can hear
a
you.
great conundrum.
What's that?
Wanting to play Pokemon Go, but not wanting to go outside and play
Oh, I
Pokemon
know.
Go.
Oh, yeah.
I re-downloaded it the other day, and I've been doing like the PvP battles. You can just do them, like sitting down. It's just like matchmaking.
Yeah.
But I want to go out and catch some stuff, you know. But
You gotta catch them all.
I don't want to go outside and, you know, walk about my phone. When I go outside to walk, I go outside to look at scenery and walk my dog, you know.
I kid you
Yeah,
not.
just play it
Kieran-
whilst you're walking the dog.
Yeah, I
I
was
did
going to
that the
say.
other day, but
It's not quite the same.
But-
you know, yeah, like, I mean, I did catch a good few. I got my Raichu the other day.
Oh,
Oh
nice.
my goodness.
Got a Raichu, and he's
A
pretty
regular
good.
or a Lowton?
Not alone. No, I came up against someone with one, and I thought that's a really cool Raichu, but I still
It is
beat.
pretty cool, Raichu.
Yeah, I found it in an Oranguru,
Okay.
which I didn't know existed. It's just a big orangutan that's a
Yes,
shaman.
that's exactly what it is.
Oh,
And,
oh,
and
yeah.
I thought that is like such an alpha.
Oh,
Pokemon.
goodness.
It is awesome, yeah.
So he's like my opener. I sent him in. He's like the first one up in my Pokemon battles because I don't think people expect him when he comes out. He actually hits like a truck. He's so peaceful. He just use his leaves to whack them. I feel like he could teach me like, I don't know, the way to enlightenment, to Nirvana even.
Oh, goodness. There you
I feel
go.
Oranguru's achieved Nirvana.
But for our audience and for Ciaran, if he's interested, if you're a big old nerdo like myself, there is an app out there called Seek, Seek, that is just real life Pokemon, and it's so cool. It's so cool. You get badges and everything, but you have to
Wait,
find
what?
you find real animals in your area, real insects, real plants, real stuff. And you
Okay.
get points and badges. Badges.
See, that is tricky. I can imagine someone like actually proper into it. So like, for example, I've got a park near me where there's a lot of deer and like foxes and stuff,
Oh,
but you never really see them during the day. It's always at night.
right.
Just imagine some real sweaty person who really wants all the badges just camping out at night in their tent waiting for them to come out.
It's like,
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
That's the stuff.
There's a few of them, and I can't get any birds because they just won't stay still.
My dad recently bought this like really like good camera. I think it's Canon brand camera.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because it's basically saying he wants to retire when he retires. He wants to like keep himself extra income by like taking photos and stuff.
Yeah.
So he went out the other day and he came back with all these photos, and I don't know how he got so close to them, but he had like such high quality like pictures of birds like ducks and
Aw.
these little tiny ones as well, and I don't know how he managed to get them. But my dad also used to bird watch, so
See, I kind
that's
of
maybe.
think I'm gonna end up being a bird watcher, which is like I do a lot of dorky things, but that's like really dorky, but I can't help it. Like,
That's it. Whenever I see like an unusual looking bird in my garden, it's got a fancy like colour or something. I say, Dad, what is that? He says, what colour was this thingy? And he can name it without fear.
oh, see, I love that. Bueno. Our friend Bueno has shown up.
Well, Brent actually, but yeah.
Okay, his
he's
name
known
is
as
Brent,
Bueno.
but I
Yeah.
call him Bueno. Hello, Brent. Bring all your
How
friends.
you
We have
doing,
a
mate?
special episode today and a special guest, as you can see.
Yes.
Whoop whoop.
Were you?
Thank you very much.
The right person there. I'm not sure.
Oh, yes. Yes, I am. Okay, check all my monitors. I got 3
Yeah.
monitors, and I'm like, whoa. Ah,
Yeah, we're gonna start in about 3
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
You let us know if the levels are okay.
Yeah, Bueno. How are our levels?
Over 9,000. Does
Over
that count?
9,000.
Let's hope so.
Oh, I miss old school memes so bad.
He says the bird nesting under my carpet just had all their eggs hatching a few days ago. Nice.
Oh,
Very cool.
did you get pictures? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we need pictures.
I love that so much. I had a bird that lived in a fern. I had like a hanging fern.
Mhm.
And it made a nest in there. It was the cutest thing ever when they hatched. I mean, they were loud. It's kind of
Yeah.
annoying, but they were cute. But
Yeah.
I am sweating to death. I do apologize.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. But I'll just say it's highlighter. Because it is really hot in this basement.
Yeah, that's the problem with basements, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's why only
no,
lizard people live underground.
I'm a lizard person. I'm an Argonian.
Which is actually quite weird, don't you think? That the basement is a hot room considering heat rises.
That's the thing.
You know,
This is
it's
usually
very
my
strange.
coldest one. What's that? Kieran, what's that?
No, I was just saying that's strange that, that's a
Oh.
good point to make that like
Yeah.
heat does rise.
It's
One of many things I
normally
learned in physics.
it's normally really cold in here, even in the like height of the summer. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just really warm.
But that's why our lizard overlords live underground. We never see them because, like, you ever seen Ice Age?
Oh yes.
You know, in Ice Age,
Aw.
like, there's a whole underground bit, like, where the
Yeah.
dinosaurs are still kicking about. That's what's down there.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You saying I live with the dinosaurs?
I saw something incredibly heartwarming. Well, not heartwarming, very upsetting.
Oh,
about
those
Ice
are
Age.
2 different things.
Yeah, I know they're 2 different things. So I saw a video a couple of days ago where Scrat finally gets the acorn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wait,
But then,
he gets in the ice cube.
yeah,
Yes.
but then a couple of days after that, I then saw another video of Scrat. The animation studios have actually killed off Scrat.
I did see this, yes.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah, I watched it. It's like
I
he's
was like,
living out his life.
Yeah.
At his old age.
yeah.
Gosh.
Out of everything that squirrel has been through,
Oh
I mean, at
my
least he lived a
gosh.
full and happy life. From
that, I
what
mean, very
the
true.
video.
That's terrible.
Adventure.
So that's tragic.
Oh my gosh, a true
Yeah, we
tragedy.
get the show on the road.
Yes, we are ready.
yeah.
It is exactly time. I'm sure we will have plenty of people trickle in as we continue
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
Although I will try to save all questions from chat to the end,
Yeah.
unless they're just like
I've got
really great.
Cody, I've got the chat open so I can keep an eye on it.
Sweet.
We'll
Excellent.
collate the questions at the end.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, Pete, do you want to count me down so I can mess up the intro?
As per usual. Okay. So
Wait,
right,
what
we'll
episode's
start-
119, right?
119, yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so we're starting in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Rapid Reviews Radio Podcast, episode 119. Every time we go over 100, or every time I'm doing this and it's over 100, it's just like, I can't believe we made it this far, Pete. I am your co-host, Kiley Wilde. I am joined by 2 regulars and a special guest today. So our special guest today is TheFinalTilt. If you want to say
Thank
hi.
you very much.
Hello,
Glad
hello.
to be here.
And I have my usual co-host, Pete. Pete, you're either muted or my microphone messed up.
No, I didn't hear it either.
Oh, I heard that.
I heard that. There you go.
Cool. Am I good?
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll use
There you
that
go.
as an
Yeah,
audio
hello.
test. And then, as always, my...
No, I'll cut that out in editing.
Yeah, there you go. My semi-ever-present co-host, Ciaran.
Yep.
Okay, the energy is so high in the studio today, folks. But usually what
It's
I
a
like...
bit-
Go ahead, Pete,
I mean,
what?
look at the studio. Like, there's 4 different coloured walls. You know?
Shush, you're breaking the illusion. No, what I usually do is every week I like to check in with everyone, see how they're doing, and just, kind of up the energy a little bit. So, Final Tilt is how I'm going to call you. How has your week been?
My week's not been too bad. Mainly just working, but getting ready for a move down south towards down towards the south of the country.
Oh,
So yeah, it's going pretty well. The sale of my house at the minute is going a lot faster than we originally expected. So yeah, looking to move kind of around about middle of May now.
that's great. I know that's a relief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What, Pete?
You'll be moving down south, which is basically where I am. There's some lovely areas down here, so I can make some recommendations of places to go if you're interested.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, definitely take some recommendations from you.
And on that note, Pete, how about you? How's your week been?
Chaotic. Still working on that work project that's moving along actually quite nicely, which is
That's
good
good.
finally. But I had a few friends over on Friday, and that all got a bit chaotic as well because drinks were involved. Clearly.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, went to a concert in Wembley last night and encountered about 100,000 people coming home because of the Tyson Fury fight.
Yes,
Thanks, Wembley.
that was really good for anyone that watched it. But
I didn't watch it. All I heard was people just, shouting Fury's name. Brilliant.
yep,
All day long.
I'm gonna be quiet
I
about
think
this.
if I was really drunk out of my mind and I was like walking down the street and just hear people screaming Fury, I'd be
Mad Max.
concerned. I thought there'd be a riot going on, like
No, there was quite a few drunk people, so I was quite cautious.
the end times,
Exactly, it's Mad
Upon
Max
me.
time.
the masses chanting Fury.
Pete, do you mind me asking who you went and saw last night?
That would be to the surprise of absolutely
I knew it.
nobody.
I
who
knew
goes
it.
to the show. It's Dream Theater.
Yep, I knew it. For those that follow along at home, Pete's absolute favorite band, and has been on other shows talking about it, Dream Theater.
Yeah, check out Dead Beats podcast where I talked about it.
For saying Peter, they're going to say John Williams, but clearly
Trust me, I want to go and see John Williams, but yeah,
Oh
that's
my
expensive.
goodness. Yeah, he's like in his 80s now, or 90s.
they still try to order bloody double glazed donuts. We won't talk about that.
Now every time I hear the Duel of Fates, I'll think of double glazed donuts. Anyway, Ciaran, how about you? How's your week been?
All right.
Yeah,
We've been
Ciaran
just
for you.
studying. I've got my first exam. I'll count not this week, but the week after is my first exam. And then a few days after that, I need to hand in my dissertation. Which dissertation's going well. It's just that I hate low word counts, especially when I'm actually interested in what I'm writing because I want to write more.
Yeah.
So my it's basic. The thing is, my dissertation's more or less done.
That's
My full 30-page screenplay is more or less done. I've changed a few scenes around, going to change some dialogue and stuff, but other than that, it's finished. I'm quite content with it. The essay, though, is 400 words over what it needs to be.
Okay.
400
It's
words.
not good.
my
Other than that, it's been chilling. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. There's a game coming out in early access on Steam next week called Prehistoric Kingdom. And it's basically Planet Zoo, but for like dinosaurs, and it's got mammoths and stuff in it as well, and it just looks so cool.
I haven't heard of
So
that.
I'm probably going to pick that up on Wednesday. Other than that, it's a lovely day today, and as we all know, the Lord themselves rested on the 7th day. Out the back garden with a can of cider, and so I think it's only just that I follow suit as a good religious man.
Yes, I have to agree with you there. Well,
Stoic today.
who? Ciaran? Ciaran's always stoic, 24/7.
But even more so than
He's
normal.
Marcus Aurelius.
That's the thing that I think I focus a lot more on my vocal talents because I'm, of course, the champion of the audio listeners.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
Yeah, true.
that's right.
We'll do
Yes,
that.
you're champion, audio listeners. He does have to remind us quite frequently that this is also an audio medium.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for myself, I have done
was
nothing.
getting to that, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, I've done nothing. I did a lot of gardening work, but I'm kind of boring right now. But the sun is shining in Belfast, and it is amazing and wonderful. And it seems like I did have something I wanted to say. Oh, there's a new game out. I do not know the name of it. I just saw it in passing. It is Well, I was gonna say Subnautica Underwater, but that's not what I mean.
Below Zero.
No, it's not Below Zero. It's another one. It's a town builder. So it's like City Skyline and Subnautica combined. Yeah. So I'm gonna be following that one, and then also playing Power Wash Simulator games.
Yeah. You'll be able to follow the game if you remember the name.
If I remember the name.
And also, the audience may also want to know. So
I have a
if you
small issue with
remember,
memory.
Just let us know.
Yes, it's a wonder I remember my own name, but
It's a wonder you even remember to turn up to this podcast.
it's true. I did turn up. I turned up early. Well, early for me, which is on time. And then I turned on the camera, and I forgot I wasn't wearing eyeliner, and my eyes disappeared. And I thought it would scare the audience if I didn't have eyes. I mean, the visual audience, not the audio audience.
Yeah.
But...
Because of course, as we all know, this is a first and foremost an audio.
How it existed in its first format.
An
Of
audio medium.
God forbid our audio listeners cannot hear
where
your eyes.
I mean, back in those days, when me and Kylie didn't even have cameras turned on to talk to each other.
That's true. It scared Pete the first time we turned it on. So quickly moving on so we can get into the meat of the story. And I'm going to turn it over to Pete and Ciaran here in a second. But we have a special guest for a reason. We are going to be talking about esports specifically today, which I know is a huge interest to a large part of our audience. And so I think we will be hearing a lot about this one in the future. But Pete, that means I'm going to turn this over to you. Give us a little background, and you guys have at it.
Actually thought it would be a good place to start with TheFinalTilt and explain who he is and what he does.
Right.
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually one of the co-owners of an esports organization called Vulpine eSports. We're a UK-based organization with teams in Overwatch, Valorant, and Tekken 7 at this very moment in time. And we are an esports organization that is heavily driven on trying to create positivity, diversity, and inclusion within gaming and esports, so that everybody has basically a safe space to, whether it's competing in esports in gaming or whether it's just casually gaming. We want to be able to give everybody from all walks of life that opportunity to feel safe in what we do, because at the end of the day, we all love doing what we want to do, and there is a lot of toxicity out there in the gaming world.
Yes.
Yeah, especially I've currently been playing Valorant quite a lot the past few days with my buddies. So my schedule right now is I basically do uni stuff like up until like 5 o'clock to create the illusion of productivity, and then afterwards a game. So me and my buddies go on our computers, play Valorant the past few days. Now, I am by no means great. I am hard stuck bronze 2, but let's not focus on that. And yeah. Especially that kind of note of toxicity, I mean, it's a big issue, it's been reported on quite widely. I think especially back when Valorant was in its infancy, and there's a lot of sexism.
Yeah.
I think everyone remembers the clips from the female streamers. They get shown off, and a lot of the articles going around. And the other day, I mean, it still happens. It's ridiculous. It still happens because the other day, some point is like I was in a game, in a ranked game, and this guy bottom of our team doing terrible, and we're like, man, you need to be playing because you're saying certain motion YouTube videos, and he just started kicking off at us and started saying some things I will not repeat.
Yeah, there was also a streamer on Valorant the other day that got themselves into a bit of hot water, didn't they?
Is who I'm
Their,
thinking of, the young
misogynistic
guy.
Comments. Yeah,
Young
that's
guy.
the one.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Can't
I
remember
don't
his
know
name to be honest,
anything.
but yeah.
that was ridiculous. I've seen the video. I know you're talking about. Yeah, the young kid that I now believe he's been permanently banned from playing any Riot game.
Yeah,
Wow.
he has. Yeah.
So I
Right.
think Riot are doing that because they know they need to crack down on it. Like, cause it's their
yeah.
game that is one of the worst for it currently out there.
Yeah.
League of Legends is
enough,
pretty
really,
dang toxic.
So the thing is, though, I think one of the most wholesome things I saw about that is wholesome toxicity. Like, see when Arcane came out and everyone was getting on the kind of bandwagon, and you see all the people on Twitter like, we know, guys, we love that you're enjoying Arcane, but please do not come over. It's a very polite way of saying we do not want you tainting our lobbies. And I think, you know what, GG's, I respect that. I respect it.
Those League of Legends lobbies. Oh. But yes. So when you say combat toxicity, do you mean just create like a supportive network? Is that what you mean?
So we are looking at creating supportive networks, especially within our own kind of Discord community that we have. So our Discord server is split up into two sections. So we've got our own kind of private hidden sections for our own esport, our own competing esports teams. And we also have sections of the Discord where people can just use it as like your normal kind of day-to-day forum. If people want to chill out and speak to each other about the favorite game that they're playing, then they can do. That's available to people. If people just want a place to just kind of hang out where people are like themselves, we can do, they can do that as well. So it all kind of really stemmed from one time when we were actually at an Insomnia gaming festival, not the one that's just gone. It was a couple of years ago.
I was at it the other day.
Oh gosh.
And at the time, I mean, she still is fairly decent, but our daughter, mine and Kitty's daughter, is really good at Overwatch, and she entered into the 1v1 Overwatch tournament that Insomnia do, and she was playing really well. And there was after a certain while, there was people starting to kind of crowd around to see what she was doing. And we did have one or two people come up to us and say, it's like, well, how is she not signed to an Overwatch team just yet? And the simple answer for it is that she's a woman,
right?
Nobody is signing females to their team.
Nope.
Because not because she's not good,
nope,
but simply because she's just a woman.
Yes.
And that kind of stuff, that kind of stuff has to stop.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's quite interesting though, especially because you think about over the pandemic, like how significantly esports has grown, especially in the UK. Like again, you think about the work that Fraser Esports is doing through, bringing esports into mainstream education and all of that. You'd think that we should be moving towards a more inclusive, kind of industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
That. But it's almost like it's holding on to its kind of less mainstream roots, let's call it, where it was started by kind of
the idea of the boys'
kind of mates starting kind of competitive teams. Oh, let's do this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well,
I think it's interesting.
You obviously saw that culture in Activision Blizzard's, like with their actual like workplace itself. So it's not really a surprise that certain esports teams have taken that principle and sort of run with it. Which, I mean, it sucks obviously, but it's great that there's obviously esports teams out there and people in the industry that are wanting to make that change.
Yeah, because I think it is because a lot of people kind of started esports. A lot of people that kind of built up these organizations were grassroots. There was ordinary people, not necessarily with a kind of I think from a kind of governmental perspective, I don't know. It's not as if like these are like official companies, let's call them. You know what I mean? In terms of oversight, I don't think there's that much in terms of like, especially when you think about Equality Act stuff. There's like when I've been at Hitmarker, for example, like applying for stuff and like looking at things. A lot of postings. Well, I think most postings I see always have "we're an inclusive employer."
Oh yeah, yeah.
But, yeah.
Absolutely.
But one thing is you never really see statistics, especially in esports. I don't think.
No.
No.
And that's the thing. Like I think a lot of companies, not so much with the fact that they chose to go inclusive, but more the fact that they had to, simply because of the fact of if let's take for today for today's world as the example here. If anybody found out that a certain company wasn't being inclusive or wasn't kind of essentially following the Equality Act, they'd be thrown under the bus so hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
With good reason.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I do have to say, of course, obviously from my female perspective, I used to watch the Overwatch League religiously. This is before the pandemic. This was probably about 2016 at the height of it, where Blizzard went all out, like those finals, with the big stadiums and the lights and everybody coming down. And at that time, there was one girl who got on a team. I can't remember her name, and I feel terrible that all these years later I can't remember her name. And then she was bullied out. Took about 2 weeks. Pushed right on out. And I have always been like, well, for me, it's always been like, my other female friends, when we play something like Overwatch or whatever, and we'd come in at the top of the league, and it's like, well, why aren't we progressing? What are we missing? What are we missing here?
Yeah.
Now I know what we're missing, but but it was, it's like it was a struggle. And that was 2016, 2017, around that time, and here we are, fast forward, and I think things are getting better, and probably because of people, like you, TheFinalTilt, and your wife starting these well, you've got your team, and then the whole Discord where inclusivity is pushed, and
yes,
I respect that like super hard.
Yeah, just wanted to know how difficult it was actually setting up an esports team and like to start.
I'm curious too.
Setting up an esports team or trying to do what we're doing within an esports team?
I would say both, personally.
Okay, so I'll answer the first question that it is that you asked. Setting up an esports team in today's society is incredibly difficult. Although it is very easy to do, it is still very, very difficult to do so. One of the reasons for this is because it is so easy to create an esports team these days. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
The main issue that I would say that happens with creating an esports team is the branding. And this is simply because there's so many, like creating an esports team, I'll use esports in quotation marks, and I'll use a saying that one of my friends uses, that there's a lot of muck organizations out there. And what my friend says by muck organizations is that they're like a McDonald's, right? They pop up, they survive for about a couple of months, and then all of a sudden they just disappeared off the face of the planet, right? That's the current situation with esports teams. They pop up, they take a name, they don't do too well, they disappear. And the problem is that you have is that like you could probably search for it even right now. There's loads of teams out there using the exact same name. There's no unique branding there. We had, so me and my wife Kitty, I think we spent about potentially 2 weeks trying to find the name that we currently have. So
Wow.
I originally started this team with a name of Foxed Up GG. It was a clever play on name, and I wanted to use the word fox, so we used Foxed Up GG.
That's great.
It didn't go too far, and when I realized that we were kind of pushing it more into when we wanted this to become not so much as a hobby anymore, but to help people out.
Yes.
Obviously, we then decided that we need to essentially we need to kind of rebrand and kind of be more professional. Again, as stated, it was about 2 weeks that it took to actually find the name that we wanted to go with, and Vulpine was that. We were just sat around kind of googling some stuff. Again, we wanted to stick within the fox themed kind of stuff, because we had noticed that not a lot of it had been taken.
Right.
The most notable one is Echo Fox, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously you've got Echo Fox there. We tried searching for things like Kitsune as well.
Yeah, that's okay. That was where I went first.
And the amount of teams that are called Kitsune is ridiculous. We went down routes of, we kind of went down like routes of seven-tailed demon foxes and stuff, obviously taking references from Naruto.
Yes.
But again, because obviously when you think of Fox, either you think of like the well-known organization Echo Fox, or again, if you think of Fox, you automatically are kind of gravitated towards Naruto.
Or Fox
so
McCloud.
There's a lot of things that are taken up already.
I think the Smash Brothers community might have umbrage with that one, because Fox is quite a popular character within.
Oh well, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I can sympathise with the naming thing. In a more recent example, for my dissertation, I I'm basically having to come up with and kind of write the first episode of an original series, so I have to name it.
Yeah.
So I remember of the 3 meetings I had my dissertation supervisor, every one he asked me, "Oh, have you got a name yet?" I'm like, "No, I'm getting there. I had a couple of ones in mind. It was like my second meeting. I pitched them to him, and he was like, but then he said, "Oh, what about this?" And then we both paused for a moment, like, nah. Like, I'm so bad at naming things. I remember as well, I was making my blog in 2020. Try to get a name for that. Oh, it was so annoying. Because I remember typing in, like, I always go, I was like, "Oh, that's a good name." I'll type it in. It's like, "No, someone else got it." And mine's there's like, so my blog is Pause Play Review.
It's a good name.
Yeah,
it's a good name. But
I love it.
There is things that is like play pause.
Yeah.
Something. And so you have those variations. So
they're
like,
not good
it's
enough.
Still not too original, but it's original enough that no one else had that version I had. So I thought, right, I'll grab this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that for the naming conventions as well, because back in the day, like, I used to have to name all the episodes that we did.
That is true.
Which was obviously could be quite difficult. So, like, on a week-to-week podcast, but then Kylie started messing up more. So
I was gonna say,
started giving me content, which helped. So.
I started drinking while we were recording, and then I said words wrong, and then they became the title episodes.
That's Fortnaught, I think it was one of them. Fortnaught,
yeah. But
as well, I was really interested by we talk about Brandon, because if there's one thing I love, right, I love there's this streamer I watch, and he's a marketing guy, and he always does something called Market Monday, and I love watching it. And he does he talks about marketing to you, and he used to in college in the US, he apparently used to waste all his time playing League of Legends and like writing for like esports sites and stuff.
It's not a waste of time.
Goes into it, and you look at a lot of big esports teams. It's an interesting thing. I think with esports globally, especially like not just in the UK level, but I think generally speaking, it's a matter of what does esports want to be. Because in one hand, you think about how esports started as just people who compete against each other, but now we're in the era where you have 100 thieves signing streamers on. As part of an organisation that is an esports organisation, but they're signing on streamers that their first and foremost concern is creating content
Yeah.
Not competing.
Oh yeah.
And also, you have teams like 100 Thieves and FaZe and all of that. Even up in Scotland, you have Scalp,
Yeah.
eSports, selling merch and
Mhm.
stuff. It's more than just the team. It is a brand.
Yeah,
I think
it
that's
is.
it's an interesting place to put in because, again, as you're saying, if you don't solidify that brand early on and you can't sell that well, you crumble.
Yeah, absolutely, you
So,
do.
but one thing I must say though, I really do like your logo. So I think
Thank
you've
you.
done well on that front. Yes.
So this is actually our first design. So we no longer use this one, and one of the reasons why is because originally I didn't like it.
Right.
And it was and one of the reasons why I didn't like it, and again this kind of goes on to the whole branding thing, is that to me it didn't feel very esportsy. You look at esports and you think, flashy logo, flashy kind of mascotty logo, either that or is just lettering. And yeah, we had this for about a year, and we eventually changed it. So now it's just kind of more of a kind of a sleek, kind of just fox head.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
managed
I
to
like it a
design
lot.
it, we managed to get it designed in such a way that and we didn't do this on purpose, but it has like a white V in the forehead of the
Nice.
fox.
It's good.
So yeah, we had that. Just on what you were saying there as well in relation to kind of content creation and entertainment as well. I've spoken to many people about this before and heard it from so many different sources. The money's not in esports anymore.
Oh.
It is in the entertainment business. So you will find, companies like FaZe, they've stepped away from esports. Back in the day, of Call of Duties, where we're talking kind of advanced warfare, and even before that as well. The hot rivalry was Optic Gaming versus FaZe. They were two of the biggest esports organizations there at the time. Optic are obviously still, from what I can tell, focusing on the esports side of things, whereas FaZe are focusing more on the entertainment side of things. And they seem to be doing really well. At the end of the day, they recently just somehow managed to sign, what was it, Snoop Dogg?
Yeah, I was about to
Yes.
say, yeah. There's
Yes.
a whole like animated announcement of
Oh.
Snoop Dogg joining them as FaZe Snoop. Very
Yeah.
good, very well put together video, but that is
Yeah.
as much about branding for them as it is, just getting someone on.
Yeah,
Again,
of course, absolutely.
as them selling that brand, as we are more than just gamers.
Yeah.
We're something else. We're bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that whole mentality. But it works for them. It does work.
Sorry, yeah. I just had a quick question, actually. How was it that you ended up choosing the games that your teams were represented in?
Excellent.
So so the first game that we were represented in was actually League of Legends.
Nice.
And one of the main reasons for this is I am an avid League of Legends player. I've been playing since about
That's awesome.
season 5, season 6.
Nice.
So I've been kind of playing League of Legends kind of almost through like halfway through its lifespan now.
Right.
So League of Legends was the first game that we went into. I won't go into the league that we entered because obviously that is a completely different story. But we didn't do too well, so we decided that we were going to kind of pull out of the league that we were in. At the time of us having the League of Legends team, we did have an Overwatch team that was kind of budding, and this was because part of the reason why we created Vulpine was in order to be able to give our daughter that opportunity to compete in a team.
Right.
So we had an Overwatch team. We built it up, and eventually they started competing as well. At one point, I think we had about maybe 5 or 6 Overwatch teams.
Oh wow, that's very good.
that's, I mean, to be fair, that's kind of common for the level of Overwatch we're at.
Right.
The organizations will have about maybe 5 or 6 different teams competing within the same tournament. My views on that are, yeah, I won't even get into that.
Yes, so just to interrupt you a second, but so you're saying their own teams will be competing against each other, or they?
Yeah. It happens. It happens a lot more than you would think within the Overwatch community. Even if I was to give you a name, Elo Hell Esports, they run the Get Good tournament,
Oh, yes.
both in North America and Europe. If you look at the European bracket, not so much the North American bracket, but you will find that a lot of the European brackets for Overwatch are highly saturated with kind of the same organizations. You'll notice that some of these organizations, as I said, will have about 5 or 6 teams, and there has been times where I have seen where where an organization's couple of teams have met each other at the grand finals. I mean, kudos to them for obviously getting 2 teams to to the grand finals.
Right.
But the problem is that it saturates. I think the word of the day for me today is probably going to be saturation, because that's the problem with esports these days, is that it is heavily saturated.
Right.
I think that what's interesting about that is that clearly there's this idea that there's so many talented players out there, but there's not enough teams. But then that could also feed into, I know this is just me spitballing here, but it could feed into the fact that with the state esports is in, where that's becoming more than just about gaming, more than just about competing.
Yeah.
You're going to need someone on that, at that starting level that has, they're not so much business savvy, but you know what I mean, someone who knows how they can keep it afloat and keep it going above. Because just imagine like how impressive it would be to have, like just take, if say these 6 teams from the one thing, like say they all split into different ones, say like one team stayed with that, the 6 broke off. I think it'd be way more exciting, because more at stake there. There's far more at stake there. But again, it's just, you need someone that knows has a plan for taking something like that off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you agree with that, but yeah.
Yeah. In going back to the question asked earlier as well, so obviously we're currently in Valorant, and we're currently in Tekken as well. Now,
awesome.
Tekken is a game that I hold very dear to my heart. Because of childhood memories.
Right.
I started playing Tekken, I think at the days of Tekken 2. I know I've missed a couple of Tekken games, but the fact that I was able to meet some people that were, because I thought I was good at Tekken until I met some of these competitive players, and I was like, damn, you guys are just wiping the floor with me. And the thing with Tekken and other fighting games as well is it's a little bit more easier to manage, because you're not having to worry about kind of coaching, because you'll find that a lot of the players will just coach themselves.
They know what it,
like they know what it is that they need to do. They know kind of the frame data that they need to work on, to be able to get the edge over their opponent. And not just that, but with fighting games, obviously it's a single player game. You don't have to worry about getting a 5-person team down to an event to compete at said event. You've only got one person, right? So it's a lot more easier to do. However, when you start getting into the realms of, because right now at Vulpine, I think we've got about maybe 10 fighters for Tekken 7. So we try and get as many of them to kind of offline tournaments as much as possible. And we're currently at that stage of, we can't give anybody kind of financial financial funding because of where we're at. We're just
Right.
not at that level to be able to. I mean, we are at that level to kind of approach sponsors, but nobody kind of wants to touch us because we don't have the social media following. We don't have the kind of tournament. We don't have the analytics that sponsors want to look at and go, okay, if we give this team some money, or if we give this team some products, what exactly is it that we're going to get out of it?
Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, it is a dog eat dog world out there. So sponsors are wanting to see what they can get out of a team. So a lot of, and this is why we see a lot of smaller esports organizations die, right? Because a lot of the funding has to come out of the owner's back pockets.
Right.
And if say for example that somebody is still living at home with parents, they're not having bills to worry about too much, then obviously you may find that maybe their esports team is going to thrive a little bit more because they have that extra funding to be able to put into the organization. I'm not saying that people who live on their own, or who have families and who have mortgaged companies, don't do well, because I know of teams that have done well under those circumstances. But it's unfortunately it is very few that do.
Right.
Because there isn't kind of almost, I don't want to say government funding, because at the end of the day, I don't think the government should be funding something that people want to go into. Like, for example, the government don't fund people to go self-employed, because essentially that's what people are doing, right?
Yes.
It's essentially out of their own back pocket.
Yeah, I have to pay to be self-employed.
Yeah. But the problem that you have is that, again, because there's so many teams out there, it's like being a painter and decorator, right? You're fighting for the same clients. Now replace clients with tournaments.
Right.
And you've got the same kind of thing. You've got painters and decorators fighting in a tournament, essentially,
right,
to get to the prize pool, to get to that money at the end of the day.
They're all fighting for the same piece of pie.
At the same time as well, you're competing for, say, prize money, but then as well you win that. Going back to sponsor stuff, that gives you something to say to them. Look, we have winners. We have winners in this team.
Yeah.
That'll get you coverage. Even like something like I don't know if that's how it works, but even like, we'll wear like a branded thing for you. Our player will get to the finals wearing something.
Yeah.
Well, what you'll usually find, and I'm just going to lean back for this because it gives it a little bit of kind of context, is that what you will usually find is that obviously like jerseys and jackets are decorated with logos.
Yes.
Because of that's part of the sponsorship agreement that they have with said company, is that yes, we will give you X amount of product, or we will give you X amount of funding, but one of the agreements that we want is for you to have a logo, our logo on your merchandise, whether it be a title sponsor, and the title sponsor is like there.
Right.
Let's talk, for example, last year when G2 Esports announced the BMW partnership that they had, and just slapped the massive BMW logo on the jersey. And obviously there was a lot of backlash about that, so that they eventually changed it. But that's what we're talking about here, because as soon as one person buys the merchandise, they start wearing the merchandise. Like, I wear my own merchandise outside the house, not just in. So mainly because I would like people, whether this is me just being self kind of pretentious or something, I would like somebody to look at what I'm wearing and go, oh, actually, what is that? What is that logo? Like, we've got our hashtag on our sleeves as well.
That's nice.
So
It's really good.
whenever we put out social media tweets, we use that hashtag. So if people see that and go, "Oh, what is that hashtag?" Actually, they go searching for it. They find us. It's a different way of doing it, especially with logos as well. So yeah.
Well,
so yeah, sponsors.
I have two-parter.
Mhm.
One, kind of okay. So Pete's our resident. What do you call it? The
Fighting game aficionado.
That thing.
Okay.
I don't do fighting games. I'm really bad at. I'm a button masher.
I do fighting games, but I'm restricted to NetherRealm exclusively. So Mortal Kombat and Injustice for me.
Yeah.
Fine.
But Pete is actually one that I don't want to say taught me, because again, I don't play fighting games, but let me in on the fact that like frame rates was important and delay and stuff like that. So when it comes to, let's say, fighting games, do you try out people, or do they automatically know about like frame rates and stuff like Pete's told me? Is that a thing that you guys just
You
know?
mean like things like frame data and that?
Yeah.
Oh, that stuff, yeah. Is that stuff you just know?
So, I mean, what you'll usually find is that the top rated player, like kind of the top half of the ranked division of any kind of fighting game, will know of frame data. They'll know what it is. They may not know exactly what needs to be done with frame data, but I like most of the guys that I have in Vulpine, they know what frame data is. They know how to use it. They know their combos. They know what they should be. They use quite a few terms like punishing. So they know how to punish off of minus frames.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like math.
It is. It
really is. Honestly, it's like a formula to it. So say, like, you have a move that has like a recovery, like that will leave you at +4 frames, and you know that like something you can counter with a 3-frame normal will actually beat it out, and then you can start a combo string from there.
Yeah, it's like it's not essentially like to oversimplify this, about speed. You know, if you know what moves, if you know a full like character's kit, for example, and what moves are fastest, then you know what's best to essentially outplay the other person.
I got it.
That's also where you need to kind of know most of the roster, surely. In that instance, we need to know everyone's frame data and every move to know.
Yeah.
So
They'll probably use this combo, which means I should probably do this.
that's kind of cool.
You know, it goes back to the thing
kinda
where
cool.
I was reading the thing the other day where someone basically tweeted how their grandparents still think that gaming's like, oh, just pressing buttons and that.
Yeah.
But like, that is just so much more. Like,
It is so much more.
Yeah.
Like, are you
There's
allowed
a
to
lot of
use?
thinking involved.
Oh man, see, now that appeals to me. But are you allowed to use like controllers that have like turbo buttons and
absolutely.
stuff?
I mean, the thing with fighting games.
That's even more math.
The thing with fighting games is that they are highly inclusive. Fighting games. Do you know what? And this is I speak to a lot of kind of fighting game people. Is that I've found that fighting game communities and fighting game players are the most underrated players in esports. Completely. But you know what? They are the most nicest players, and they are the most nicest community I think I have ever met in esports. Because there is that sense of accomplishment within the whole. You know, if one, let's say for example, I'm going to use a well-known fighting game organization here called Rise. They're over North America. They're over EU. They're massive. They're massive over basically globally, and let's say for example, one of my Vulpine fighters was taking on a Rise fighter. There wouldn't be any kind of bad blood there. People would be shaking hands before and after, and you'll usually find as well that even outside of tournaments, that I found that one of the most common etiquettes when playing online ranked, especially for Tekken 7, at a higher level, so kind of the top tier ranks, is that you will keep fighting the same opponent until either one of you promotes to the next rank or
Right.
demotes to the rank below, because you're learning from each other. You're learning on what can be punished. You're learning on what can be, be recovered. Again, it comes down to that frame data.
Yeah. The thing that I love most about the fighting game community is that sense of collaboration. So
Mhm.
you'll have it at the end of a match where someone's like confused by something that has happened, or
Yeah.
they're like, hold on, I thought this was going to beat this out. So they
Mhm.
ask the question and they're like, oh, you just it's this and this. Basically, this is why
Yeah.
I beat you out, and it's amazing. I had something that happened at Evo in Smash Brothers where I kept getting punished by something I'd never seen before. So I asked
Mhm.
the guy, and he told me the ways to actually recover from it, so that the next
Yeah.
time I encountered it, I knew what to do. And
Mhm.
that's what I love about it. It's so inclusive in that respect, and I've not really been able to explain to these guys here why the fighting game community is so great, but you've put it into better words than I ever could. So
I
yeah,
like to shoot
it's
things,
amazing,
not
really, the
punch
amount of
things.
collaboration that they have between each other, like the inclusive space as well,
Yeah.
and everything. But it must be quite difficult, obviously, having like multiple players like from your own team sort of going into a tournament, like competing against each other. As good as it is, like to see them getting far, you're obviously going to have a couple of people that will be left disappointed, and a couple will be jubilated by it.
Yes, however, the thing about fighting game tournaments is that a lot of the tournament organizers, especially here in the UK, I can't speak for other European tournaments because I've not witnessed how the brackets are formed for those. But what I will usually find is that a lot of tournament organizers, they won't tend to know who is on what organization, but they will see the clan tag system is a wonderful system.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a lot of players will use their organization's clan tag, and
Mm-hmm.
they will see that upon registration, and
Oh, yeah.
then they'll go, right, okay, we're not going to put these guys against each other
yeah.
because of potential win trading. At least I believe that's what it's for anyway.
Okay, sorry, just to interrupt you just briefly, like, because I know obviously how they did it for the American side of things when
Mm.
I signed up for Evo. They did have on the application if you were part of an esports team, and to include the clan tag as well. So,
Yeah,
and they tend to get split up like quite
yeah,
a
they
lot
do.
during the bracket stages as well, in the
Mhm.
early stages at least.
Yeah, and that's what happens over here in in the UK or scene as well, is that they'll see those clan tags and they'll split them up into bracket phases so that people won't get put up against each other, that are within the same organization. So I mean, I wouldn't have to worry about that too much. Obviously there has been times, I believe, where people have gone up against each other because maybe the tournament didn't gain as many registrations as possible. But I don't think anybody has ever really kind of felt down about being knocked out by their own organization
Right.
teammate, because again, as you said, it's more of the kind of whole collaboration, see where you can work from and see what you can do better. So it is, as you said, it is a collaboration, not just between your own organization, but between the free agent players that are out there and the players that are in other organizations as well.
Right. I'm learning so much about this fighting stuff. Honestly, I just rather shoot things, but it's still fascinating. I really
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
to do
well,
that.
obviously they have different rules and regulations in terms of like shooter tournaments and all that. It all
Yeah,
Yeah.
plays
I
into
mean it makes
It's just
sense, but well, Kieran, did you have anything to you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I was going to say, because I know Pete wants to ask about event organisation stuff, and I did notice on the Vulpine website, I like to research on the fly.
I've been doing
I
that
noticed,
too.
I noticed you guys run Apex Legends tournaments.
Yeah, our flagship Valve series. So
Yeah, I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
yeah, so we wanted to branch out into kind of tournament organizing as well, as just kind of being just everything kind of inclusive. Just we kind of wanted our fingers in all the pies, just to kind of see what would stick.
Yes.
We're now kind of 4 Vows tournaments in. Actually, I think we're maybe 5 now. Coming to think about it, So I can't really remember why it is that we decided Apex. I think it was more so that, again, I'm going to use the word of the day here, is saturation. We were looking at other games and we were thinking, it's like, damn, Call of Duty is heavily saturated with kind of like minor leagues. All the other games are kind of heavily saturated. We wanted something that we thought that wasn't going to be, that was going to be something like, what haven't people done before, right? Because this is one thing that we like to do at Vulpine, is we like to do things that people haven't done before, right?
Yes.
And we tried doing our research, and one thing that we noticed is that Apex Legends just hadn't been done realistically. A few months down the line, we've realized that actually, yeah, there are a lot more kind of minor Apex Legends tournaments that are out there. But one thing that we did that was different to all of these other Apex Legends tournaments is that we, at the beginning stages of Vows, we began to give out early invitations to colleges and universities in the United Kingdom. And one of our main reasons for this is, and I won't name names, but there are tournaments out there that is specifically kind of focused towards the more college side of things, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
they will have their own closed circuit. Now, a lot of these colleges will obviously be wanting to obviously have esports courses now. So they have their own teams. So they're competing with each other. The only issue with this is that unlike a normal esports organization, you are looking for specific ranks. College organizations, however, they are obviously taking people on no matter what, kind of no matter what their rank. Now, that's obviously not a bad thing. But what you then tend to find is that, let's say, for example, College A has a mixed team. So they have one highly skilled player that is a high rank, and you have kind of 3 mid-rank players and 1 kind of low-rank player, right? And then you go up against like College B, who have got really lucky, and they've got like 4 top-ranked players. Which college is going to win?
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So what we then decided to do is that because the problem is, I don't want to say that college esports isn't good, because it is. It's definitely good as to what it does. It starts to give people that taste of what esports is, right? But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you that sense of what esports actually is. It is a ruthless sport, right? So a lot of tournaments, it doesn't matter what kind of rank you are, you can enter it, right? So let's take League of Legends, for example, just because I know a lot about it. Obviously that there are a lot of tournaments there that specifically say, look, you've got to be this rank to be able to compete in this tournament, and you can't be anything higher. But there are obviously other tournaments out there that can. But what we decided to do was we decided to incorporate it all. So we've got normal esports organizations competing against college teams and competing against university teams, right? And not just esports organizations, but people that are just general members of the public forming teams together and competing. So you've got a mixture of 4 sets of teams all competing in one tournament, because this is what gaming and esports should be. It should be a togetherness, right?
Yes.
There shouldn't be any kind of gatekeeping where you go, oh, only colleges can compete in this, only universities can compete in this. It needs to be a togetherness, because if the UK scene is going to grow, we need to grow together, because these students that are doing these esports courses once they finish their courses, what are they going to do? They're going to look into other esports organizations, right? But if they've only ever been able to compete against college or university teams, how do they know what organizations are out there? Who do they know? Who do they know kind of who to turn to? Who are reputable organizations? Who are, who's an organization that isn't just going to, sit around, kind of, and kind of play with people's hopes for not, to not, go to that next level. It's the same with our Valorant team at the moment. So as I stated earlier, obviously we're not in a position to be able to financially fund any of our teams, just because we just simply don't have the funding.
Right.
But the thing is, a lot of our players and a lot of their kind of support staff, they know this before they come into our organization. They know that there's not that funding, and I know there's a whole heavy debate about this at the moment, kind of through social media. Like, you should be paying, people, or if you're not paying people, they need to be made aware of the fact that they're not going to be paid. And the thing is that our Valorant team, they are good. They are good at what they do, but now they want paying. So it's like, okay, right, that we can't offer you this.
Right.
So what they're now doing is they're now essentially kind of moving on and trying to find an organization that will pay them, and we're not going to stop them, because at the end of the day, I've got nothing to offer them. I can offer them until I'm blue in the face that we're a positive, inclusive, and diverse organization, but at the end of the day, that's not what they want. That's not what people want. They want to be the best. They want to be the best within the best, right?
Yeah, and almost to the stage, what a career as well out of it.
Exactly.
That's what I was just about to say, Ciaran, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
On you go.
No, I was just gonna say it does make me think of like I play sports, regular, boring, non-digital sports. It makes me think specifically of roller derby. Roller derby is a very grassroots type of way that esports is, in that it's a group of people having fun. They start a team, and then they get to compete against, like, UK wide, and then it goes on to worldwide. And we do it for the love of the game. We don't do it because there's no money to be made in sports. We do it because of its passion and everything. But by the same token, the teams that do win the cup, the World Cup, they do pay.
Yeah, of course they do.
So yeah, if we have someone good enough to be on those teams, we lose them to teams. So it's very reminiscent of that, and I find that it's very interesting to see people's motivations, we'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that you said there is that that sports and esports are so very alike.
Oh, very.
It's unreal. A lot of people, see that, see people just sitting around a computer, like, or a console playing video games and trying to make a living off of it. But it is so much more than that. Like, if we take a look at Rogue, for example, I believe they're a UK-based organization.
I think they are,
I could be wrong.
I bought my stuff from them, so I think they're UK based.
They have their own cook, who cooks them, incredibly healthy meals. They have their own fitness regime that they've got to stick to. They've got so much that they've got to stick to. It is not just about playing video games.
That's it, exactly. It's very disciplined, and that's probably the first team where it really clicked with me that esports is sports. I mean, I've never been one of those people who are like, oh, it's not real sports, blah blah. But Rogue was one of the first. They're very disciplined. I love that. I just love discipline.
It's interesting because I think that's where general perception of esports becomes a significant hurdle. Even now, when, as I've mentioned earlier, esports is growing significantly, that is still probably one of the biggest barriers. And I do have some big picture questions, but I'll save that when we're closer to the end of the episode. What did I say? I mean, Pete, you were going to talk
I was
about
gonna say Pete had something.
the process of actually setting up these
Yeah.
tournaments. I don't know if you want to feed into that.
Well, yeah. Now that we've obviously spoken about vowels and that, we can talk about like the changes in regulation that was made, like in terms of certain IP holders. So
Yep.
There you go.
I'm not sure, obviously, if you're interested in moving a team into Street Fighter, but Capcom have recently just changed all the way that they organise tournaments and
Yeah.
how they process all of that. So I'll just want to quickly read something that they put out. It said, calling all tournament organisers. This was on the 28th of February, by the way. So check out our new community license agreement running events for Street Fighter 5 Champion Edition. Covers everything you need to know in one easy to reference space. So they were talking, I think, specifically about prize pools, how the way that they advertise the tournaments itself, and the use of footage as well. So how difficult is it actually to deal with the IP holders themselves when you are trying to organise a tournament?
So when we do, so Tekken, so we've run one Tekken tournament before. We've run, I believe, 1 or 2 Overwatch tournaments before. That was fine. That wasn't an issue. I think with those two games themselves, they don't have like kind of strict rulings about what can and cannot be run as a tournament for their games. For Apex Legends, the only thing that we kind of found difficult was kind of how to contact the people on how it is that you do a tournament in the first place, because with a battle royal type game, you can't just create a custom lobby. You need to have like a custom code from, I believe it's either the developer or the publisher or whatever. They give you a code. They give you multiple codes, and then they turn around and go, look, these codes only last for so long. Once the codes are done, they're done. And we need to know the times and dates of when your tournament is, which is fair enough. And one thing that they say as well is that it can't be on these certain days or times, because this will clash with our big tournament, right? So obviously they have their own tournament that is kind of officially sanctioned by the IP. They will say, look, no tournaments on these days. So obviously we then have to work around that, but that's absolutely fine. Because I also read the same announcement that you just kind of read out there about Street Fighter, and I've got a bit of a controversial statement to make, because I was trying to before I came on the podcast, I wanted to kind of get what people's feelings were of it. So with being in that kind of fighting game community and having followers in North America and in the EU scene, I didn't specifically pose a question, but I just wanted to kind of see what the news was about, how people reacted to it. And there was a lot of bad kind of reactions. And when I say bad reactions, I just mean people felt incredibly hurt and done to by the whole Street Fighter thing, because they were like, well, we've just given you X amount of promotions for X amount of years, and now you're just kind of throwing this back in our face. My answer to this is, at the very end of the day, it is their IP. They get to choose and do whatever it is that they want with it, right?
Yes.
They could have turned around and said, we're not having any small tournament organizer run any kind of tournament at all, because this was almost very much a reality in League of Legends tournaments.
Right.
A lot of kind of smaller League of Legends tournaments, not like small, but like kind of that mid-level, just below kind of the European regional leagues. They were very close to being shut down by Riot themselves, simply because some of the leagues that were being run were essentially rivaling the kind of, I believe, I don't know the ins and outs of it,
Right.
but I believe it was about like kind of the viewership that they were pulling, and it
Yeah.
was kind of overtaking the European regional leagues, which, if people don't know, is essentially the step below the the national league. So like your LEC, so your League of Legends European Championship, your LCS, League of Legends Championship Series. They didn't want that to be overtaken, so they were very close to being shut down. And this was at the time that we had a League of Legends team, so we were still we were still speaking to people at this very moment, that were running these tournaments, and they were like, we just don't know what the future's going to be, because they were being very close to shut down. Thankfully, the leagues that we used to be in are still running. So obviously there was some kind of there was either some kind of negotiation or something happened where these leagues are still running. But at the end of the day, the fact that this announcement was put out, and they said, yeah, okay, that's you've got to abide by these strict rules now. One, okay, that's fine, that's fair enough. It's your IP. You can do whatever you want with it. We can't really challenge that. Yes, I know a lot of people have made their living off of doing these tournaments,
Right.
and a lot of people have got to it, gotten quite famous from the tournaments that have been run, right? But again, I understand where kind of Capcom are kind of coming from with that IP announcement, that community license, because they don't want smaller tournament organizations or smaller or kind of like mid-level tournament organizers overtaking some of the more prestigious events. I know obviously it would be very difficult to do so, like it would be very difficult to overtake Evo, or any other massive tournament organizer that that deals in Street Fighter, because I know that this essentially this hit any kind of fighting game that was created by Capcom, wasn't it? It wasn't just Street Fighter.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
like
'cause
general esports rules, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was essentially, and it's probably what's going to be the template going forward for their Street Fighter 6 tournaments as well.
yeah. I mean, it's not great for people who are trying to earn a living off of it. I get that, right? But what you can do is, it is a great gateway. Because I know for a fact that they said that you can only have certain amount of prize pool per year. Your tournaments can only have a certain amount of prize pool per tournament, up to a maximum of obviously that limit per year. That's fine. Just what I would say in relation to that is, instead of running one big tournament like every 6 months or something, you run smaller tournaments, maybe on a monthly scale or a weekly scale, with a smaller prize pool, because obviously I know that they said that the prize pool had to be a fixed amount. They couldn't use any kind of, I believe the wording they used was kind of crowdfunding based prize pools. So for example, like Matcherino, which is used a lot in kind of fighting games. So yes, it hurts, but then it kind of brings the whole aspect of, these tournaments have got to be sponsored by somebody, or the tournament is being paid for by the tournament organizer. Right. But if you go down the sponsorship route, that doesn't just help your company, that then helps the company that is sponsoring you as well. So in a way, it's a little bit like trying to not only bolster yourself, but help somebody else, in order to help raise the economy again. Because obviously we have had a pretty bad couple of years, let's be honest now.
Yes.
So if there's any way that we can help other people to help boost their economy and boost their business with, even if it's just driving footfall into their company, whether it's an online footfall or whether it's a physical footfall, if you're advertising that you are sponsored by said company, that said company is at some point going to get increased footfall because of the advertisements.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you think these rules that they've put in place that Capcom have done now are also to regulate online tournaments and stuff like that too?
Absolutely. It's definitely in order to kind of monitor online tournaments. There's a lot of kind of bad. I don't want to say bad blood because that's the wrong kind of term to use. There's a lot of animosity, I think is probably the right word to use, for online tournaments. I recently myself, so every so often, I will compete in the Tekken 7 tournaments just because I can, not because I'm any good, but just because I can, just to see kind of how well I've improved a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with it is with online tournaments, you could be, especially in the UK or Europe, you could be playing against anybody, right? Especially if it's a European tournament.
Yes.
Myself, I was paired up with. I was paired up against, I believe, maybe like a player from Georgia. Obviously not Georgia, America,
No,
Georgia,
Georgia,
the country. And the internet connection between the two of us was incredibly bad. It was laggy. I don't know whether it was just because of network connection or whether it was hardware lag or whatever. But because people in online tournaments are trying to learn and trying to get to that next level without having to go to an offline, it's incredibly hard to do if you're not all playing at the same level. Whereas if you are at an offline, you're all playing off the same hardware. The only thing that is between you and your opponent at that point is skill, right? Because you
could also say the controller method in which you're using too, because some people might fare better on stick, some people might fare better on controller, or some people even play on hitboxes as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can kind of get a good feel for, like, you don't know how somebody is playing online, whereas if you're playing against somebody offline, obviously you can see how it is that they're playing, like you said, either via hitbox, via stick, via controller. I've heard some people playing on keyboard and mouse as well, which I can only imagine is incredibly difficult to do in a fighting game. But it is, I would say that the new ruling is definitely a way of being able to kind of moderate the online tournament because of the animosity that there is there, because not everybody's playing on that same level.
Yeah, I have heard about online tournament organisers all telling their participants that they have to play on a wired connection.
Yeah.
And they have to check controllers beforehand as well somehow. Because obviously people can make modifications to their controllers to include turbos or
of course,
macros and stuff like that. So it is definitely a minefield when it comes to dealing with online tournaments for sure.
What is hitbox? Absolutely. What is hitbox? Yeah. What is a hitbox? I know what hitbox is in Devon and
so basically the arcade stick itself is actually buttons, not a joystick.
Right.
It's I got to use one like many years ago, and it confused the whole living hell out of me, to be honest.
I'm gonna take your word for it.
It was very awkward.
No, I'm gonna ask you a big picture question now. Because I'm bottling them up and I've been reeling them. Right, so on the topic of like events, small and big, and how companies are approaching this, with Riot, taking example from Riot, I really enjoy playing Legends of Runeterra, which is Riot's card game.
Yeah.
It's probably I want to say highest. No, I think Halo Infinite would be the highest, but Halo Infinite's ranked, isn't the best. But and ranked in LOR, I am currently platinum, which not much of a feat, but I like to tout it. But basically, I follow streamers and content creators for the game on like looking at new decks, how they play them, and stuff like that. I find it interesting. I'm into the game, and a lot of them were casters for seasonals, and then with the kind of Riot's kind of look ahead kind of video kind of live stream they had, they were talking about LOR, and they said that they were essentially canon coverage for seasonals to invest more into the worlds.
Okay.
And it turned out that a lot of these casters weren't told this. So that's a lot of casters. You talk about like a lot of people make a living off this. A lot of casters
Yeah.
no longer getting paid for that. So some of them were a bit thing about it, but they kind of took it like on the channel.
Yeah.
They could do what they want with it. But that kind of mentality of like focus on the bigger events, I suppose I'll ask this first. Do you think that's healthy for esports in general? Having only the big events?
No, absolutely not. The problem that you've got with the big events, so for example, like Legends of Runeterra Worlds, you got League of Legends Worlds, you've got Valorant's Champions tournaments. Even Call of Duty, if we take a look at it now, I believe it's like the CDL or something, isn't it?
Yeah, CDL,
yeah. And actually, Call of Duty is a really good example to use here. So the problem with the big tournaments, like the major tournaments, as they are, the problem is that not everybody can get to them, right? Because the problem that you've got is that the teams that are able to go to these major events are essentially franchised teams. Either they're franchised teams or they play in a franchised league. So Overwatch League, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and you can't get into those leagues without paying a hefty sum of usually about 20 to 50 million. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's usually how much it will cost a team to get into a franchised spot.
Oh my gosh.
Of whether it be Overwatch, whether it be Call of Duty, whether it be League of Legends. Now, something that I will continue to argue to the back teeth and until that I am in my grave, is that franchised leagues are, whilst they are great for viewing, they are not great for esports as a whole. Now, here's the thing: what was actually really good was Call of Duty's old system that they used before they went to CDL, because what they had is that they had a series of I wouldn't say minor tournaments. They were still pretty big tournaments. Let's take, for example, like MLG Anaheim. I'm really showing my age here.
Wow, going back some years.
Yeah. So we talk about like Anaheim, other tournaments like that. So a lot of teams and a lot of smaller teams would go to these tournaments to earn standing points, right? Because at the time, if you were winning or getting close to winning these kind of smaller tournaments, you would at some point you would potentially be invited to go to the World Championships, right? And not just that, but the World Championships even had their own bracket. Like they had their own open bracket. So you had like the big teams like your Optic Gaming, your Evil Geniuses, your Team Envious. I could go on.
Yes.
They get personally invited by either Activision Blizzard or Call of Duty, whoever it is that runs the tournaments. They get that personal invite. They say, right, okay, your spot is set. You are in pool play. These are the set games that you have to play, right? Before you can obviously you've got to compete in them, and then eventually that you move on. If obviously you play well, and then you've got the open bracket, which is any team can join as long as you pay like the kind of team pass and you can get to the venue, right? And this was like your traditional kind of offline kind of tournament. Anybody could join as long as obviously you paid the fee. Essentially a little bit like Insomnia. You can pay the fee to get into the BYOC area, which obviously got you into the tournament, right?
Right.
Again, the same kind of thing happened with Call of Duty. You pay, you pay, you play, and eventually you had that opportunity that if you got and won that open bracket, I think it was like the top 4 teams of that open bracket, then went into like the bottom, and open slots of pool play. I think I specifically remember, now this may have been either, no, it wasn't Black Ops 2, it may have been Advanced Warfare, or at least the game before it, where I watched Mind Freak go through the open bracket, and then they went into the pool play, and then they were able to beat, I believe they were able to beat teams like Optic, or at least start to take games off them, right? And then if they obviously went through pool play, they were into the big tournament. But we don't see that anymore, because those teams that may have been able to purchase the team pass and get their team there weren't able to get into the next slot because they didn't have that franchise spot. I know, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I kind of turned away from Call of Duty, is obviously they had that system that I just explained. And then what they decided to do is in their biggest, I believe in their big tournaments, they would then operate 2 brackets. So they would have essentially their challengers bracket, where your teams that paid the team pass and could get their team to the tournament could compete. But as soon as you won the bracket, that was it. There was no going forward. You won that bracket.
Right.
There was no going forward into the actual main tournament where all the other big teams were playing in order to give them a chance to prove themselves. It was a case of, you're playing in the challengers bracket. That's it for you. There's nothing else. Right, and then you've got the other one, which let's just say was like the champions bracket, which is where your franchised teams were. They were already, they started off the tournament automatically put into a group. They went through the group stages, and then they obviously then went into the grand finals, winning, the large amount of money that would be advertised. But that system doesn't even exist anymore, because we're moving to, we're either moving to franchised spots, or we're moving into a franchise spot. And not just that, but then if we take Overwatch and Call of Duty and the system that they're now using, the home and away stuff that, the home and away system that they're using, it's just not viable for smaller teams to be able to show themselves. What you're finding at the minute is that smaller teams are being able to do well in tournaments and eventually progress. I'm going to use Overwatch, for example, here. So you got the Open Division tournament, which is like kind of the lowest of official sanctioned tournament. And then if you win Open Division, then you go into Contenders Trials, which is obviously the next step. And then if you win Contenders Trials, you then go into Contenders, which is the league directly below Overwatch League. But the problem that you've got there for things like Contenders and Contenders Trials is that obviously they worked on a promotion and relegation system, right? So you've got teams that are competing in Contenders Trials and Contenders that are good enough to get into Contenders, but are not good enough to get out of there. Right? So what you're finding is that teams are getting in there and then being relegated. So then they're going back into the Open Division tournament, where the smaller organizations like Vulpine are, and we're able to progress through the tournament but we're then meeting these other organizations or groups of friends that have been there, that have been competing at that semi-professional level, who then can't beat them because we don't have the funding
Right.
in order to be able to pay for the level of coaching that they're getting, the level of analysts that they're getting, therefore stuck in a perpetual cycle of being able to get to that level, but then not get any further because you're then being met by the teams that have been there but have been relegated downwards.
So it's almost like a financial gatekeeping.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to liken it to sort of in sports as well, where you have it with the Premier League and the Championship. So you have teams that will come up who will get like a windfall, like from going up. They will then get, like, if they get relegated, they'll get financial incentives for a couple of years, but then that's it.
Yeah.
You know, and they tend to go down to the bottom, like to the next league down.
Yeah.
And tend to dominate and come back up. So you have that yo-yo effect, whereas the smaller organisations just can't compete with that. And it does make it for more sort of unfair competition. So it comes back to a point that you made earlier on. If people can't compare sports to esports, well, there's your comparison for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
sorry. I was just going to say, if I had to compare what esports is like essentially at the moment with that kind of whole perpetual cycle to a real life UK, to a real life sports team, I would potentially use Peterborough United Football Club.
Yep, I could definitely go with that
because they are constantly moving up into they move up into the Premiership, not up into the Championship. They compete in the Championship for, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 seasons, and then they get relegated back down to League One, and then they're able to win in League One, but they're currently in that motion, right?
Yeah, you also have it in the Premier League to the Championship with Norwich and Fulham and a couple of other teams like Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Where, they are smaller teams. They're not going to sort of be able to compete with your Man United, your Man Cities, and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing I was going to say is I like the concept of allowing, because obviously I think it's only fair that there's, again, I think we mentioned this earlier, how there's some really great players out there, but because they're not part of a big franchise or part of a well-established team, they may not get noticed or picked up. That's why I like games where actually playing ranked can land you a spot. So I think it's easier to implement in systems and games where it's a 1-on-1. For example, again, I'll go back to Legends of Runeterra because that's one I know. For seasonals, to qualify for seasonals, there's a lot of ways you can do that just through the game. For example, I think the top however many people in Masters Division and ranked get immediate entry into competing in seasonals. Then as well, if you don't do that, the one thing I did, which I did end up qualifying for seasonals, but I was too late, is I think the first 350 people to basically win this kind of weekly gauntlet it's on, every weekend in the game, so like Friday to Monday, this gauntlet opens up, which is a tournament style mode in Legends of Runeterra. So you go in, pick 3 decks, you ban one, that kind of best of 3 type deal.
Yeah.
And then if you can win a gauntlet matches 4 weeks running, you get entry into seasonals, but you need to be the first engine. But at least what I'm saying there is like that then allows you, as someone who's maybe not well established, at least a chance at competing against some of the best in the world, and that chance at money. But obviously for teams it's a bit tougher because Apex, my friend has been Masters rank in Apex Legends for 2 seasons running, and he has grinded that out. But because Apex is that team thing, it's not as if it's a shared team rank. You're playing ranked and the game won't recognise that it's you and these people that are the same rank, if that makes sense. It's like you're effectively going in as an individual with some people a lot of the time as well. So it's a lot harder than those games. But kind of branching off from there and giving people chances, right? So that's another big picture question that feeds into the one I just asked as well. in the US, sports is obviously very big. Sports is a big deal in the US on a social and kind of cultural level, to the point where these kids are getting scholarships into college because they're good at basketball or football or whatever, what have you. And I don't know if there's colleges in the US doing that for esports now.
There are.
I mean, but I think that'd be a good thing. But that's where I'm going with this. So one thing I can draw on is NBA. March Madness. March Madness is where all the college teams get to compete against each other. It's all broadcasted. I also get to see these young guys, who could make it to NBA. There's a lot of following, and also March Madness is a good way to promote the future of the big leagues, which is NBA. So I suppose my question is, should esports and these developers and publishers be implementing a system where they're essentially uplifting the significance of these smaller tournaments in a way that can promote the big tournaments and promote players? Because I mean, personally, I suppose my perspective on this is, if they do that, it works for them, because again, it does promote the big tournaments. It can draw in viewership. It promotes the game as well, gets people to buy it, but also for the people that love the game and want to compete, it gives them more time in the spotlight. So perhaps they could be picked up by a franchise, and in that way, it comes more in line with the traditional sports of almost, you have these scouts that are watching these games, can say, oh, but obviously with thinking about the Capcom rules, kind of almost undercutting a lot of these small tournaments where these lesser known people can compete. Surely a better move would be to use these to promote the bigger things and promote the players that could make it there.
I suppose what they could have done with the whole community license in order to answer the latter part of the question that you just asked, because I can go into the earlier part of the question that you asked as well. So with the Vulpine Apex Legends series that we brought up earlier, one of the requirements that they ask us to do is actually to have because we stream these tournaments, what they ask us to do is to have a command so that anybody can put it into the Twitch chat, and it actually advertises their big tournament, that their latest big tournament that's coming, and also to put it on a timer as well. So just in case nobody actually puts the command into chat, it's also on a timer so that people can see it on an automatic basis as well. So that could be potentially another way to go for the community license that Capcom released for Street Fighter and other their other fighting games as well. In relation to the earlier part of your question, I think there is starting to be some kind of headway in regards to that. And that is it's actually being done by Riot Games for League of Legends, most predominantly in Korea, so the LCK, and in the LCS as well. So Korea have recently launched their, and I suppose the LEC as well with the ERLs. So Korea have released their Challengers tournament, which is basically the tournament below the main thing. It is hosted by them. It is, I believe, streamed by them as well. But it is a way for people in Korea that are of that next higher level to be able to compete and potentially get a franchised spot into the LCK teams. LCS do it slightly differently from what I can gather. So what I believe they did was, I think this was a year or 2 years ago, they took, I believe, the top 5 players in the challengers queue from each role and then put them into a tournament against each other. This was and then what would happen is that organizations would see this tournament and have eventually picked them up to be a part of their academy team, who the academy teams now play in another tournament called Proving Grounds, which is specifically for the academy teams. Now, what then happens is that the head coaches or the analyst or the team managers of the main teams that are competing at that highest level are looking at these academy players and going, okay, you're actually playing really good, like better than any of the other academy players. We're going to move you up into the main team, whether it's as a substitute to begin with or whether we just put you into the main roster because we're going up against some, I wouldn't want to say lesser teams, but we think that we can beat them even if we had an academy player in our team, right? So you've got two types of systems being worked on there. However, then you have the LEC's system that they use, the European Regional Leagues. Now, if I recall correctly, there are 10 European regional leagues. So for UK, you have I believe you have the NLC, which is the Northern League of Legends Championship, which is for UK, but I believe it's for other countries as well. I believe maybe for potentially Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Finland, those kind of countries. But within that European Regional League, so let's use the NLC, for example, you've got divisions. So you've got division. So like if you start from the bottom division, that's where anybody can enter in. And I think European League of Legends does this by far the best out of any of the others that I've just described. So you've got these European regional leagues, you've got then divisions for those European regional leagues. So the bottom, you can have any League of Legends team enter in from anywhere that you want, as long as obviously you are meeting the rules and the requirements. Again, it is potentially streamed by that regional league. If you perform well, obviously you start to then move up the divisions. You've got to compete in qualifying tournaments to go up these divisions. But eventually, if you get to the top division of that league, of that regional league, you will find that you are streamed more often, and therefore you will then potentially be picked up by smaller, by bigger organizations. Let's take for example XL eSports. For this season, for the split that's just gone, they picked up Marcoon and Adavine from their academy team, who I'm fairly certain were competing in Division 1 of the NLC. Not just that, but you've got the LFO, which is the French European Regional League, which surprisingly is where a lot of the rookies that are competing in the main teams of the LEC are coming from these days. The systems that are being used in Europe should be the system that is being used in esports all around, and not just for League of Legends, because I think it's a system that can't be flawed. You've got the European regional leagues, which is essentially your league below the main league, and then you've got your division-based system. So if you're not able to get into the next division, well, that's down to you. That's down to you and down to your team, because you are competing with other teams that are at that level, right? And then you start moving up the division, and that's when you start to potentially get more funding, because then you're being live streamed more. You're starting to make a name for yourself. It is just a much better and much more simpler way of running esports, I would say.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Again, I just think it makes total sense, like, for them to use those ways, because of course their primary concern is to promote the product and make money, and they can do that. I mean, and the best way to do that is to market it. And what better way to market it than showing off the potential up and comers that could come in, because everyone loves an underdog story, especially.
Yeah, of course.
Imagine some kid, no one's ever seen this kid play before. He shows up in this tournament. He absolutely knocks everyone out of the park. People are like, he's going to get a following.
Yeah.
And that's someone they can also promote as a big one that will be competing. A casters can then talk about this kid. And it's just there's so many layers to this, and especially when, again, I referenced like the US and NBA with like March Madness. The US kind of audience watches college games, which to me is strange. Like it's not a big thing over here to like watch like high school football, or like like it's not televised at least, but like it's I think adopting that kind of style where you are showing the sport, because the esports needs to understand like it's more than a game, it is a sport. I think that's one thing they need to lean into.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is to adopt this kind of style that especially US, which biggest country in the world, or biggest kind of thing in the world anyway. Some would even argue sports capital of the world as well.
I'd argue
Why not adopt their system where they champion sports? But then again, the problem is you need to I think that solves the problem of getting people to view esports as sports.
Yeah.
Champion it, then and that's the responsibility of these companies, not the organizations, I feel. Because realistically, as we talked about earlier, the organizations are focused on being organizations and uplifting themselves into ever increasing heights. Not to say they're narcissistic or self-centered, but like realistically, they didn't invent the sport; they're just competing in it.
Yeah.
The players of the sport should be the ones to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely second that. And I think we are making some kind of headway into making esports almost into a mainstreamed thing, especially over the pandemic years that we just had. As I believe this was during the pandemic, or maybe towards the end of the pandemic, somebody actually tweeted out a picture of viewership for North America, and this had basically all kind of sports on it, right? And obviously, your top two were going to, I believe, the top two were the NFL and I believe the NBA. In viewership for North America over the pandemic, which is fairly understandable. But then the third one really shocked me was the LCS. The LCS during the pandemic was the third most watched thing in North America, which overtook things like the NHL.
Major League Baseball.
Baseball. It overtook baseball. So, but this is off the back that people weren't able to go out and watch their sports, and those sports weren't taking place because of the pandemic. Right. So if we can do that during pandemic, it can be done during normal years. The problem is people don't want it to be.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start taking motion away from the big sports that that people know and love today, people aren't going to want to do anything, right? Because a lot of esports is watched sat at a desk on a monitor, or potentially on the odd occasion going down to, because I know that there are some pubs, like some gaming pubs out there, that will televise they will televise the streamed games on their TV screens. The problem that you've got is it's not so much the fans of normal sports, but more or less the bigwigs of main sports, because the thing with big sports is that they make a lot of their money from having fans in seats at the stadiums, right? Because obviously they've got to pay the rent at stadiums, etc., etc. Without having any fans there, you're not paying the rent, you're not paying your players, therefore your sport then slowly begins to die out. The thing that esports has on top of has that best sports is that yes, a lot of tournaments can be done online, but it's only very frequently that the tournaments are run offline. Therefore, you're not having to then worry about rental costs, especially if it's a one-off tournament that you're running basically just that once for that 1 year.
Right.
You don't have those extra costs. Yeah, you've got those costs for things like League of Legends, where they've got their own studios there, and obviously it did hit them quite hard, especially during the pandemic years, right? But they have that option to then play that game online, which is what they did. Sports, on the other hand, main sports does not have that opportunity, because as main sports, that can only be played in person.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Therefore, then having that issue of you start taking fans away from seats to start to push esports a lot more, then that's when big wigs of main sports start to have an issue. Let's go back to League of Legends again, simply because, like Legends of Runeterra, it's a game that I know. Let's see, when was the year? 2012, 2013. League of Legends held its World Championships in Europe. The quarterfinals was held in the UK and televised on BBC Three. It was,
That's cool.
I believe it was SKTT1 versus somebody else, and it brought in, from what I've tried to find the viewership stats on it. I can't find them anywhere. I believe it brought in quite a lot of viewers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was this. I remember that being on BBC. I can remember hearing about it. I didn't think the BBC would ever do that, but
I never thought of it either.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it did draw in quite a few.
It's
People.
amazing.
But I think as well, like on this kind of topic as well, right? And I mean, it's no secret that, especially among like Gen Z, for example, like the younger generation, traditional cable television's dying out to online streaming. You know, things like Twitch and YouTube, because content creators and this notion that the younger generation is growing up with parasocial relationships that people never met.
Yes.
You know, it's the same way that all of a sudden, you know, let's say gamers have their own celebrity culture now with content creators. You think Ludwig, you think Pokemon, you think about that. These are celebrities that get daily coverage, like from their streams. Like, for example, Ludwig like makes an announcement to get covered. You know, it's the same way. Like, these people's lives are there for us to watch, even if it's like not their day-to-day life, you know, they're not got paparazzi following around like kind of traditional celebrities have. But it's interesting how culture's shifting to that, to almost like this subculture is becoming a parallel culture to traditional culture. I think in the years to come, we're going to see a very interesting shift there, where if Twitch play their cards right, Twitch are going to become way more mainstream than they are. And if that's the case, then I think esports is especially going to take off thanks to that. But again, what that does for Twitch, because you know Twitch are currently competing with YouTube gaming, in the streaming wars, as has been dubbed by some streamers and creators. Well, for example, the big YouTube gaming acquiring Ludwig, for example, that was a big one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the future of esports is very interesting with regards to that. But on that, me personally, I don't know if Kelly or Peter have an extra question for you, but my final big picture question is more general. If you tap into your inner profit here, of course, talk about mainstream and esports here. Commonwealth Games have finally introduced esports, of course, I believe, with eFootball, Rocket League, and is it Overwatch? I think Overwatch is the third.
Dota.
That's it. Dota, yeah, which I find a very strange one. When I was on something the other week, I watched Dota and I didn't get it. But but nonetheless, that's a big step in terms of getting esports in the mainstream. That's like, it's not Olympics, but I mean it's the Commonwealth Games. You know.
Yeah.
Do you think that esports being introduced into something like the Commonwealth Games, you know, will have a big impact on it going ahead? And in general, you know, where do you think esports should be going in the future?
Okay. I have a really, I wouldn't say a quick answer for this actually, but it's an example that I can use really well. Several years ago, I like to kind of put on the odd bet in relation to kind of esports related stuff. About a couple of years ago, I put on a bet that basically stated that esports would become an Olympic sport in 2020.
Ooh.
I originally betted that it would. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I genuinely think that esports can become an Olympic sport. I think that the Commonwealth Games that have recently been introduced are a good thing for esports, as in a mainstream system per se. The thing is, World Cup or world stage kind of international tournaments like that are not unknown to esports. Overwatch, I believe, was potentially the first people to start doing a traditional kind of World Cup series where they had a committee, almost like the Commonwealth Games, where they picked players and they had players qualify against each other in order to be able to be a part of their nation's team.
Right.
I think it is a good idea because what you tend to find is that you tend to start finding hidden gems when you start doing teams for things like Olympics, or you start to do teams for like a World Cup, like your traditional football World Cup, but for esports, right? You start to find hidden gems because there are people that are qualifying to be a part of that team that you never expected, that you've never heard of, that are absolutely goated, and they will potentially wipe the floor with those names that are there.
That
No.
brings up an interesting point.
Yeah, well, that was all I had to ask, really.
Okay, yeah, I'm very mindful of time here as well, because we've been going for nearly 2 hours. So,
Ooh, nice.
any sort of pressing final questions that anyone really wants to ask?
I guess that's mine, so I'm good.
Okay,
But honestly, this is... Oh, on you go.
Okay, my final pressing question is: any plans to make a Smash Brothers team? And if so, and this is a joke, by the way. Any chance that you could employ me as your coach?
In relation to Smash Bros team, the thing with fighting games is that it's because of the thing that you'll find with fighting game players is that they're not playing one game.
Yeah.
With fighting game players, you will find that they are playing potentially anything from maybe 3 to maybe 5 fighting games, and then competing in those different tournaments, because you'll find that with the offline tournaments that are being held, it's not just for one game, it's held for multiple fighting games on different levels of the arena. So you'll say, for example, have Tekken on one level, and then you may have like Street Fighter on another, and then maybe Smash on a different level of the venue. So, I mean, it's not unheard of that people can come into to an organization that are playing more than one game.
Yeah,
that's
I like
what when I spoke to people at Evo, that was always the case. They were always playing like other games, so
yeah,
they'd have their round on Smash, and then they go off and play Mortal Kombat or Tekken or something like that. So fighting game players do tend to sort of play a lot of different games.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Nothing
Did
from
you
you,
have any
Taylor?
final questions?
I think that wraps it up for everyone.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
Yeah, let me get my brain back in gear. Because I was actually, I was going to say that if it does go to the Olympics, that would be really cool for many reasons. But because gaming is so, there's adaptive, gamings and gaming mechanisms and stuff.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have to be like, what do they call it? The Special Olympics? Is that what they
Paralympics.
Paralympics.
Yeah, I think Americans would call it.
That's
That's what we call it.
No, the Americans used to call it that.
We call it that.
Crazy
But-
thing.
But you guys call it
it just
Paralympics.
sounds very.
I know. Well, we say a lot of weird things in America, but that means that it opens the Olympics to a wide array of people, which again is inclusive, which again I think is the ultimate goal of everything ever, in my mind anyway.
They kind of had it as well, where I think it was Intel, like last year, might have set up an Intel World Cup or something like
Oh,
for
right.
various different games.
That does ring a bell somehow.
Yeah.
Ring an Intel bell. Well, I think that's gonna do it for us. This has been thoroughly interesting and very informative. I learned a whole lot, and I do encourage our listeners and our watchers to let us know how, if you like this, do you want to hear more of this? Because I'm fascinated. I also have some plans in my mind now.
We'll talk plans.
Yes, we'll talk plans later. But I do want to thank TheFinalTilt so much for being here and giving up his time to join us, because my mind is absolutely blown. But we've reached that part of the show where we like to tell our audience, both our listeners and our watchers, where they can find everyone. So, TheFinalTilt, where are all the wonderful places out there in the internet that they can find you?
So they can only find me on Twitter and Twitch, essentially just searching for TheFinalTilt. I'm quite lucky that I've managed to get my usernames as being just TheFinalTilt
awesome.
with no numbers. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So yeah, just TheFinalTilt on Twitter and Twitch.
Excellent.
I will add those to the show notes as well, so people can find those. But I'll also include a link to the Vulpine eSports page as well, so they can have a look at that.
Thank you very much.
Pete's really good at that. He's wonderful for all that stuff that I don't do. Pete, I'm just the talent. He does all the hard work. But Pete, what about you? Where can they find you out there?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, the only social media platform you can find me. Pete Beckett1, which is spelled BECKETT, and then number 1. But you could also follow the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast they do called Never Watchers too.
Yes. You have an episode coming out this week.
Where you at now?
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Dear God.
3 and 4, we've got to record it.
Oh.
That's tragic. Oh well.
No,
I'll be overseeing, I'm sure.
Well, we've got the new episode coming out soon, and I literally, I stumbled my way through that discussion because 2 hours after watching the show, I couldn't remember what had even happened.
So, Pete, it's because nothing did.
Yeah, you're right. Ciaran, do you want to, let everyone know where you can find you?
I guess so.
If it's not too much to ask, of course.
Yeah, so if you want to seek me out, you can mainly find, I guess place you can best find me is on Twitter, at TheMcginn. On there you can find a link to my own blog, pauseplayreview.com, and also Rapid Reviews UK, where I have been absent from doing reviews for a while because of uni work and about to grown up stuff. Been busy with all that shaz. So you can find my stuff there if you want to even just go through. Find my stuff. I believe. I think most recent review I did from my own personal blog was of Matt Reeves' The Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in looking at that, go check that.
Well,
Kylie, what about yourself?
If you're curious about the goings on of an autistic brain, you can follow me over on Twitter. And I'm talking slow because I'm trying to remember my Twitter address.
So good last
which
week as well.
Is at Kiley to Greet, KILEYTHGREET.
Hey, you got there in the end.
Yeah, I did it, Pete.
Why do I have to remember your Twitter handle?
What would I do without Pete? I would do nothing.
That actually is true.
Yes, it is true. But again, thank you so much to our special guest today. I hope to have you back in the future. This has been just absolutely. There's such a different. There's a whole world out there. A whole world out there that we don't know about. Okay, that I don't know about.
It's been a pleasure. I'd definitely love to come back at some point in the future.
Absolutely.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna.
Thank you very much for joining us. Honestly, it was great.
Oh yeah, no, it's
Oh yeah,
really
love
good.
this. Yeah, it's been great. I'll tell you, I love interviewing, especially when I just love learning new things.
Yeah.
I love learning things, and so
Absolutely.
an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So I think that's going to do it for the audio portion. We'll stick around 2 more minutes after for our visual audience. So we'll end Ciaran's championing of the audio audience now. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you and talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That is the end of the audio portion. We're 2 minutes streaming now.
Relax.
Yeah, I mean, we're still on camera, but...
Yeah, of course. But yeah.
Don't get that relaxed. Start burping in the microphone. No, that was really, really good. It got my brain a chugging. So.
Oh yeah, it definitely piqued my interest for sure.
Well, see, here's the thing. Before the pandemic, Pete and I were gonna throw a tournament, a Smash Bros. I say we. I don't do anything. I throw money at things. I say, here's money. People go do it. And so I was gonna throw money at Pete. And
Like the true business owner that you are.
Yeah. I was like, I don't care. Do whatever you want. And he was gonna do Smash Brothers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then the pandemic happened, and Belfast, whole Northern Ireland, unlike most of the rest of the UK, we shut completely down.
Yeah.
Just
Crazy.
We're just now starting to open back up. We still have to wear masks
wow.
in stores and stuff. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's still very strict here. But still in my head, Pete. Still there.
Don't worry, I'm not going to let you forget it because I want to run that tournament.
And in Scotland, we've literally just lifted our mask wearing restrictions, and I kid you not, yesterday, I was meeting a buddy in Costa, and not a single person was wearing a mask. I think I was the only person other than the staff.
Yeah.
Mind me.
Yeah, very strange. It was strange being down in Birmingham where not had mask restrictions in a while.
Yeah.
And seeing everyone, I was like, oh my goodness. I'll be honest, I had that worry. I was like, I'm going to catch COVID now, aren't I? But
Yeah. I think a lot of people have that initial thought, like when they first step out of the comfort zone that they've been in for quite a while, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna be. I may still wear a mask. Well, I look really cool though. I do look like a Mortal Kombat character in my mask. So I might. What?
no, see, if you really wanted to, you ever seen those sports athletics masks that actually generally Bane masks that help you breathing when you're running and stuff.
Yeah,
oh, like the high altitude mask type thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen RGB ones probably.
Ooh.
Razer brought out one.
I have a light up
Razer brought an
mask.
RGB mask.
I have a light up mask. It says words on it. I can program it to do words and then program it to do fading in and out of colors. I don't have any.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
Yeah, well, I don't have anywhere to wear it. I'll just have to wear it on here.
I get this mask. That's
the one I have.
I got this mask when we thought COVID died out mid 2020, so before the second lockdown, basically. Before the second lockdown, I was out at a pub and they had these masks for £1.
Yeah.
I never had a mask before because I wasn't out before. Really, this is one of the first times I was out, and I mean leaving early to go get the train back down because trains back down my way stop at 12 at night, so I couldn't stay up in Glasgow. I was like, I need to go back down the road.
Yeah.
And I left and I thought, how much are they again? She says, oh, £1. She's like, let's get one. And I've had this ever since. Same using disposable ones.
No, I don't do the disposable ones. But yes, we're wrapping up right now. Anyway, so we're going to say goodbye to our streamers. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you enjoy the VOD and let us know how everything is. And we will talk to you and see you guys next week as well.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Hello.
See you guys later.